The first 1,000 days on my Minecraft island went great, but at this point in the world, I had completely run out of motivation. If I was really going to transform this giant island over the next 9 years, I was going to need a whole new wave of inspiration. Little did I know the next 1,000 days in this world were going to be some of the most impactful for the future of the world. Some of my biggest, most popular, and world-altering builds ever, all in the span of 10 months of work. But I was going to need some new inspiration, and it came quicker than I thought. It's been about a month since that intro, but I think I might have just figured something out. I've been going back and forth on what project I want to do next, and I finally landed on a villager trading hall. Villager trading halls are extremely overpowered, and I've never really made use of one, so I think it's going to be cool. Plus, with the food shortage going on in my world right now, it's definitely going to be vital for the long term. Problem was, I still had no idea what build style I wanted to do. I considered doing something more modern or even like futuristic, but to be honest, nothing was really inspiring me. That was until the start of this year when I took a trip to Europe for the first time, traveling through the Alps and the Mediterranean. The architecture throughout these regions was so unique and honestly inspiring, especially these really colorful cities along the coast of Italy. When I got home, I realized a city like this would be the perfect addition to our island and would make a honestly pretty great villager trading hall. I think the first step for this project is making it a little easier to get to and from this project and back to my storage room. I want to connect up the two main areas in my world with nether portals, the medieval district where my storage room is and my castle, and my Mediterranean district where this new project is, as well as like my lighthouse and my starter village and all that stuff. But seeing as I'm going back and forth a lot, I think it's important to make it as fast as possible. We got it done. We can now enter our lighthouse, go through the nether portal, then travel down this very tall and skinny hallway, turn a corner, and right over here is another portal that spits us out right at our storage room, much faster than flying the distance. In terms of starting the actual project, I think I want to put it along the coast, like over here, sort of. One thing I did notice about these Italian towns is that they were often on these really sharp cliffs, which I already sort of did over here. I'd actually like to carry that all the way around, which is a really big project on its own, to be honest. And it's going to involve making this side of the cliff much sharper, but I think it'll hopefully be worth it. So I want to bring the water all the way back to this line here where we're going to have sort of a retaining wall. It'll really help this area feel more man-made and lived in, I think. I hope. Hopefully my vision comes through. This might actually be more digging than I'm expecting though. We'll find out. I picture this area as a lot more wealthy, so I think I'm going to turn this into a harbor with docks where we can put stuff like sailboats and more expensive things like that. Especially since we're on an island, I think boats will really add a lot to this world, and it's something I want to get better at building because they are hard to build. We're going to have to worry about that later in the episode for sure. We have successfully carved away our harbor, and I want to work out what kind of retaining wall I want to put up here. I want it to be about this tall, I think. Let's try a design here. Let's try inverting back and forth between these two blocks. I think something like that could work really nice for the look I'm going for, as well as some slabs on top. Am I gonna have enough mud to finish this? Definitely not, but we'll make a start. That mud was enough to get about a third of the wall done. However, we have a lot more to go. And as you can see, I'm sort of just bringing the terrain down to this wall here where we're eventually going to have a stone pathway running alongside it. I think it's going to look really cool and contrast pretty nice. to have enough room to run a road against this harbor, I had to clear out this whole big cliff here, which was alright, because then we can move right on to building this stone road. And it matches a lot of the roads I actually saw in Italy quite a bit. From there, I just made the cliff a little bit nicer with a deep slate retaining wall, and I think it turned out pretty good. Here's how it turned out. Obviously, this is super bare bones, and that's on purpose. It gives us a nice idea of what this layout is gonna look like. Obviously, this needs a ton of detail. We need to texture both the ground, the actual barrier against the wall, as well as this thing. But with a project this big, we really gotta start out simple and then add details later on. I think something cool for this harbor area would be installing some lower down docks made out of spruce wood as a place to eventually park some sailboats and other kinds of boats. I think it'd be a pretty cool detail to add later on, so I want to work on this now. Let's see how it turns out. The docks are now done. I have at least a basic layout for what they're going to look like, and I think this adds a lot to the area. Makes it look pretty cool. I'm ready to turn my focus towards the actual city itself. And while I wanted to do most of the designing actually in the survival world, I did take some time in creative to use Axiom to at least figure out the shapes of the buildings as well as the roads. That's kind of the big stuff that's pretty annoying to have to redo over and over again. So I think planning it in creative beforehand is really going to save us some time. The roads were super easy to recreate. I obviously have a ton of stone in this world. However, I don't have as much terracotta, so I'm just collecting some real quick. I'm using 7 or 8 different colors for these buildings, and I need a lot of terracotta to build all of them. Here it is. We have most of the city planned out now, at least. And what I've come to realize is when I'm building like this, where I'm just not worrying about details at all, it is so much faster. And it's pretty enjoyable. But of course, now we've got to get to the detail phase, which means we have a lot more work to go. One thing, of course, is all the roofs. I want to make all of them out of brick, which is kind of a problem because brick really sucks to get. Which leads me on to the reason I even made this village. For a villager trading hall, we could actually get some villagers to trade us bricks, which would be perfect. Over at spawn here, if I remember correctly, I have a villager breeder just over here. Yeah, so if we grab a couple villagers from this and build a new one over by our city, I think there should be plenty. Yeah, there's a ton in here. We can grab some villagers to trade us bricks, some villagers to trade us golden carrots, and some villagers that we can give iron to for emeralds, because if there's one thing I have a lot of, it's iron. What we can do is grab a villager, throw him in a boat, while our brand new villager breeder starts working, I'm going to look around and try to figure out which house I want to use for our mason villagers. I'm thinking this yellow one is a good candidate, but we do need to separate this into a couple floors at least, because right now it's sort of in the side of a cliff. We're going to have a small staircase running up the side here where we can access the second level. This layout is sort of confusing, but we've got level 1 and then a little level 2 up here, as well as an even smaller level 3 up here. This should be enough room for a good amount of villagers, though. I'm trying to include some splotches of variation of the color. I'm not sure how this is gonna look. I think this might look alright. We'll see in the long run if I end up even keeping that. When walking through the real life cities, one thing I noticed about every house was these green shutters. Literally every single building had them. Apparently back in the day, people used to think something in green paint kept bugs away, which is why it kind of became the standard for the area. And if I want to try to recreate that, I kind of have 2 options. Either we could go the warped wood option, which is kind of green, or what I'm planning on doing is taking this like 3rd stage of copper, which actually looks pretty green. It's not perfect, but it's definitely the closest thing we have to like a green metal in the game right now. We could try to craft it and wait for it to oxidize, but I'm impatient and would rather try to find one of my old trial chambers I've been to out and try to loot it for all the copper trapdoors it has. There is another one I think I did on camera back in episode 2. It's just over here past our skeleton grinder. I think it should have a good amount of trapdoors down there. We'll find out. Yeah, this cave. I remember this place. And then I dug into this wall and here it is. Do we see any trapdoors? We're just gonna ignore the mobs, to be honest. Here's a trapdoor. There's just one. So far, I've only found one in this entire place. Okay, this plan was a total failure. There's not a single trapdoor in this entire thing. That means we have to resort to plan B, which is just mining the copper by hand. Wait, is this a... Hold on. This might be a copper vein right here. The granite and all this copper. It seems like it is. Oh, it totally is. Let's go. Hold up. I see sunlight. We are back at the surface. Nice. Let's head back over to our base so that we can make use of our good old super smelter. Let's make sure it still works. It does. Nice. Now, I forget how expensive these trapdoors are. It's just like this, isn't it? Okay, that's not terrible, I guess. Thankfully, we have a nice little fireplace we can wait up here with our dog. I'm really happy with this base. It's really nice. And I plan on staying here for a while longer, at least until I outgrow it, inevitably. There's no rush, though. There's plenty of other projects I want to work on. We gotta let it all oxidize, but that's not bad at all. Let's lay this all out. They are already beginning to oxidize. For some reason, this one oxidized crazy fast. That's nice. I think, though, that color is going to look really good once the rest of these oxidize, which is going to take forever. But let's try to work out our design for this room here. I want to start by adding a trim to the wall here using these beehives. I think this will look pretty cool. I had the perfect amount, actually, which was pretty cool. Yeah, that already improves things a lot. So let's go ahead and work on the counter spaces for our stone cutter, where our mason villagers are actually going to be standing. I think it'll be something pretty simple like this, where of course we need to hide their tables somewhere. I'll just try sticking them in the walls. A random detail that I thought would be kind of cool would be a fish tank in the wall. I will need to get some fish to put in there though, but that should be pretty cool. I'm going to install some big murals on the wall here as well. And then the most important detail is adding some pots, because of course these are mason villagers and this is the kind of stuff they'd be doing. Yep, there we go. I think I hear a wandering trader outside, which may have exactly... Where is he? There he is. He might possibly have exactly what I need. Kind of. I was looking for more of a tropical fish, but I guess we could take a puffer fish for our little aquarium. There we go. We got our puffer fish in place. I just realized how annoying it's going to be to try to get up the stairs every single time. This guy's going to poison us, but it's all right. He's probably going to die anyways. We'll add some plants to some of our pots up here. And I'm not the best at interiors, but I think this room turned out pretty good. I'll put up the doorway, kind of. And I think this area should be ready for villagers to move into. I mean, it seems like there is a little... Yeah, I still need to put the ceiling in. There's water dripping in. However, I feel like this is a really nice and somewhat more humane... Get out of here. Hopefully a creeper doesn't walk in. What I was trying to say, though, is this is a little bit more of a humane way to store the villagers. I think I'm just going to leave them in mine carts and they should be fine, I think. Oh, we've got a little aquarium with this guy who's a little annoying. And then we have similar setups on this level. And even the top level up here. We do need to get that roof done pretty soon. Hold on. If that's thunder, maybe my brown mushrooms. I put this lightning rod here hoping that lightning would strike these guys and turn them brown, because I've never had those in survival before. The lightning rod is like lit up like it is ready to fire, but I don't know if it will. That beacon looks so sick in the rain. Wow. Oh, it happened. There they are. They did pop out of the boat, but... We have brown mushrooms for the first time. These are so cool. We'll have to do something cool with these pretty soon. Hey, there's a rainbow. Also, a lot of my copper oxidized, which is even better. In order to install the windows, we first need to find some squid. Here's a squid, because I need black dye. Sorry, buddy. First up, I'm going to make a ton of black glass like that. Turn a lot of it into glass panes. Fill in all these windows. Then we're going to take our honeycomb and wax a lot of these trapdoors. But let's try putting in all of these trapdoors and see how it turns out. I know how it turns out. I tried it already in creative. But one thing I did want to try is adding some pale wood details, like the door being the white wood. Can't forget about the back door either. And then we're even going to try a little white trim using the signs. Of course, when you back up, you won't be able to see it anymore. But close up, I think it's a cool detail. Maybe. We'll find out. Oh yeah, that's definitely cool. I need more, but that's cool. I like that. That adds a lot, actually. It really breaks up the floors a good amount, which is something pretty important to these types of builds. Now, in order to get the roof on, we need to get those brick villagers up and running. I think, hopefully, if we check the villager breeder, which is conveniently right next door, it's almost like I planned it that way. there are a good amount of villagers in here. And those villagers have somehow got to end up in each of their little pods in our little masonry tower here. Let's try to set ourselves up a minecart track here leading into the house coming from the villager breeder. Let's go ahead and test this out and grab a villager. See if he'll go all the way into our little storage unit for him. There we go. And right into here. Oh, okay. He did take the job. That's good. And he's trading bricks. Perfect. Okay, I think they can stay in the minecarts. Probably. Yep, he's restocking and everything. We are good. Let's keep this going. Villager number 2 popped right into place. We got the first 5 villagers here in place. Let's see how fast we can trade for some bricks. And hold on, this gives me a ton of XP too. That's also super nice. And now, yep, I can even trade stone to them for emeralds, which I have plenty of. And now they've even started trading me terracotta. That's actually pretty nice. And dripstone. Ooh, that's kind of nice as well. I didn't even know they traded that. And now they trade me quartz, which is also so nice. These villagers are awesome. I don't know why I've never had villagers in a Minecraft world. It always just kind of scared me too much, but this is totally worth it. And one round of trading gave me like 4 stacks of bricks, which would usually be way harder to get. Now that we have our bricks, we can actually start working on the roof. The roof sticks out quite a bit, so I'm using these levers as kind of supports for it, I guess. But it'll be something like this for sure. And I'm just doing a nice and simple slab slope going up like this. Okay. Bad news. Looks like they all got infected. I thought that zombies couldn't get in here, but here we are. Okay, I've got this lingering potion. This should work. Is this okay? I missed, but that's the right potion. And there we go. They all should be, that's so loud, but they all should be curing now. I managed to finish the roof and windows for these other 2 buildings, but let's finish up the set of 3 houses by working on the exteriors, adding a little bit more detail and character to each of them. First, we've got to connect each of these to the road, which should be pretty easy. I put up a small retaining wall here, so we kind of have this area to work with here. I want to make this maybe a flower shop, I think. So I'm just going to put in some various tables and shelves and stuff like that. Then we're going to have some leaves up there, a bunch of flower pots all around. Putting all the details in place completely transformed the shop front. It added so much life to the area, and we even did the same thing for the masonry. We added a bunch of pots out front. I cannot wait to do this for the rest of the buildings, but we do have a bigger issue to worry about. I've been trading non-stop with our brick villagers in order to finally be able to put the roofs on all our houses. Getting all the roofs in place really brought this place together. I'm pretty much just winging this all. So seeing that it doesn't look too bad right now is definitely a good sign. Of course, the next step, adding all the windows, is really going to transform this area as well. Something I'm kind of nervous about doing is like these diagonal buildings. They're going to be weird to put windows in, but we're going to try anyways. In situations where it's a corner, we can just use the full glass blocks, and otherwise we'll stick to the panes. I would really like some farmer villagers for golden carrots, so I think we're gonna make these 2 buildings here like a farmer's market. I think that'd be cool. I think that actually is a really good color combination. I didn't really expect that. For this green one, there really isn't green trapdoors or stairs, so I'm just gonna go for something more along these lines, and we're gonna make this a whole lot better. We're gonna put a awning on it like this, but instead of using wool, we're gonna use these blocks because they have slab and trapdoor variants, so something a little bit like this. Awnings like these were very common in that region, and I think this really adds to the build a lot, honestly. I mean, the colors match perfectly, and it makes it look a whole lot more like a food market. I'm tempted to make it even wider and cover the entire thing. Let me try that. Yep, I think I like that better. Jumping ahead a little bit, I made these 2 rooms for 6 total farmer villagers, and they now supply me loads of golden carrots. I was able to go through our town and add these little light posts to try to fix the zombie problem we've been having. While we're waiting for the shutters to keep oxidizing, I'm just gonna go around and keep adding some of the smaller details. For example, the big tower here, I think it needs a more strong foundation, so I'm putting in some tough bricks like this. It'll also add a bit more detail to it because it's kind of plain right now. Yeah, I like that. These details are starting to add life to the city, but we have a long way to go. I think a great way to liven up this area right now would be some palm trees. This is definitely a more tropical area, so I think they'd fit nicely. To build these palm trees, I'm going to need cocoa beans, which I conveniently farm right nearby. I also need a little bit of jungle wood. I also need azalea wood. I'm growing this tree and harvesting it down, pretending like I don't already have a ton of azalea leaves in this stroker box here. But how else will I have content for the video? I'm gonna use tough walls as the trunk of the tree because I actually think it kind of fits the color a little bit. That turned out really cool. It's huge for sure. Like, it's almost as tall as the buildings, but palm trees are actually kind of that big in real life, so I think it works. Let's add 3 or 4 more around here, see how it looks. I'm gonna add a bunch more later, but I think this really starts to sell the environment that I'm trying to build here. And for my first time building palm trees, I think they turned out pretty good. I think it would be cool to add like a big copper fountain in the middle of this, to have something here other than this big grass plain, although it doesn't look too bad. I mean, anything other than this grass plain would probably look better, and I think if we make it in this green color, it'd match pretty well. Let me see if I actually have any copper though. Looks like I collected a ton of copper from trial chambers, so we do not have a problem at all. Okay, let's figure this thing out. I think we'll put it like here, kind of. I really have no idea what I'm doing right now, but I'm just trying some random stuff and seeing if it works. This seems like a good height, but obviously it needs a lot more work. Here's how it turned out, and I've made a lot of fountains in my time. I think this might be my favorite one. I just really like the color of this copper, honestly. The technique with the lever, with the blue glass, make it look like a little stream of water. That's been used plenty of times before, but I think it works on this pretty well. I spent last night adding a couple more palm trees dotted around, even one over by our lighthouse. But I also kind of went around deciding what each house should be. Like, this one will be a fisherman hut. This one might be like a library. For some reason, this building seemed like a good hotel. We might put a market stall or 2 over in this corner here. And this yellow one here is going to be a map maker guild. I'm actually really inspired to work on this one first. I think a new tradition in this world is that every year I'm going to rebuild this map room somewhere else and update the map for each year in this world, which will be really cool, but also will take a ton of maps. So having a build like this is going to be super useful for storing a bunch of cartographer villagers. Let's get started with this build. First thing I want to do is throw a little mini map out here in front for like tourists and stuff like that. I want to put a darker floor in here. I'm thinking I'm going to use dark oak. I have no idea what this pattern that I'm trying to make right now though is. I think it actually turned out kind of decent. I'm not mad with this at all. I want to have maps hung all over the different walls, so I'm flying around filling out these like trial maps and monument maps and stuff like that. I left this one half complete. I think that's actually pretty cool. Next, I threw in the counter, a plant, some bookshelves, stuff like that. And aside from smaller maps like that, I would also like to have a larger, like really zoomed out map of the entire island. And we can do that by throwing a map in a cartography table. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. I did not expect one single map to take me a half an hour. And if you're wondering how big this map is, that little red speck is literally this entire city. I think this is going to be something that I do later, a lot later, on my own free time. And now that the villagers are in, this build is looking great. I really like this interior. Once this map is in, it'll be very cool, but of course I'm not working on that right now. And these guys can trade us plenty of maps. I also have a mod on that gives all the villagers names now, so we got Keith, Rosa, and Ricky. I think this is a great new addition to our town, though. It probably doesn't surprise you, but for this fisherman house, I would like to have a lot of fishing type decorations, a lot of fish, which feels like a good excuse to finally get a nice fishing rod in this world. However, somebody ran out of rockets and now has to use a horseback to their base. I'm at the old XP farm right now, trying to get enough XP to enchant my fishing rod. I'm not positive what the best enchants are. Let's see how this goes. We can enchant the book with Lair 2. We'll try that. I mean, I guess that's alright. For our fishing rod, we're getting it on Breaking 3. And, ooh, that's literally every single enchantment right there. That is actually so nice. Now we can make use of our docks and catch a bunch of fish. This is so much faster than a normal fishing rod. It was definitely worth the time. And fishing in Minecraft's pretty fun. Let's get started with this build. First thing I want to do is we can throw some barrels out front. Then right next to the house like this, we're going to have 2 rows of campfires, put fish on all of them, and then extinguish them to have these permanent fish on display. On the inside, we're going to go nice and simple with birch wood, which will pretty quickly lead upstairs. Along this back wall here, we're going to have a setup to smelt our fish. For a roof on this place, I'm going to try copper, I guess. A cool detail I did work on is this banner right here, this little fishing rod banner. I'm not not quite sure exactly where I'm gonna put it. Maybe like hanging off the side like that. I think we'll just throw it there for right now. I'm starting the process of transporting the villagers in. This is how the interior turned out so far. I think it's pretty cool. Hold on, this guy's way too far to the side. Here it is. We've got a couple of fisherman villagers now, which will actually smelt our fish for us. Pretty cool. And this is just gonna act as a place for me to store all the stuff I get when I fish, which will certainly be nice to have. Remember when I said this building was gonna be like a library? Well, I changed my mind. I think instead I want to make this a bank, which might seem weird, but I have a good explanation, I promise. The most plentiful resource we have in this world is iron. We have so much. So I think having some villagers in there to convert our iron into emeralds would be the perfect use of that space. And also a bank is something I've never even tried building before. This build is gonna be pretty large. It's gonna make use of a couple of the buildings here. Firstly, I want to put in a vault on this side over here. Something like this. We're also gonna put a door in here so I can still get in. The floor is gonna be like a checkered pattern like this. I'm working on a little interior for the vault right now. Now with this vault built, we have a place to store all my extra diamonds in the world and also all of our iron, or at least enough iron to trade with the villagers with. For the roof, we'll go nice and simple with some sandstone. Let's set up some desks here with shelves and bookshelves, something sort of like that. A little bit of a glass wall too. Then I'll do pretty much the same thing right over here. This is gonna be like a reception desk, sort of. I would also like to put some plants. I think like that probably. It's a little weird looking with the green stem, but it's not too bad. And now we have a rail set all the way up, going all the way, winding through these buildings up to our villager breeder. What the heck is this? What is going on? Why are there so many in this house? Clearly they weren't able to get to them, but what? For some reason, the villager breeder isn't working right now, so I'm opting to transport them from the faraway villager breeder. I only managed to get 3 villagers. For some reason, the world has just stopped producing them, which is kind of annoying. We'll worry about that later, though. We've got these 2 toolsmiths, which are great sources of iron, and a weaponsmith over here. I'll probably get some of the armorer ones because they also buy iron. But we now have a decent, at least, a decent source of emeralds, which is nice. In order to get another sign checked off the list, we should probably work on this one around the corner, a market stall. This is a nice little tucked away place for it to be. What should it be made out of, though? I know what it should be made out of. I'm saying it like that because it's going to be a little annoying to get, probably. Hopefully, though, we can just dive down in here, grab just the right amount of it, and get out of here before they shoot me. So far, I haven't gotten mining fatigue, which is nice. I'm a little low, though. I'm going to leave. I'm probably just going to use a real simple design, one that I've sort of used before, something like this big, maybe. And then we'll invert between prismarine and quartz, just like this. Yeah, look at that. Nice and simple. We do need to sell something in here, though. I think we're going to make this a candle stand. Yeah, this turned out really well. Little details like these really add up and eventually bring life to the whole area. I have 15 projects in mind, and each of them is going to help bring my world to life. As a YouTuber, I often abandon projects before they're finished just to post the video. However, that sometimes leads to my builds feeling lifeless. To fix that, each project within the next 100 days is going to expand on our current builds and bring that much needed detail into our world. The first thing I want to do is actually pretty large. I'd like to build a cliff face along the right side of the city to help kind of frame it out better. This cliff is going to be pretty big for a reason I'll explain in a second, but that means we'll need to gather a couple of days worth of stone. I've been digging all my stone recently from this quarry area, and I figured one day maybe we'll haul the whole thing out and we could turn it into some sort of underground city. I spent the next few days working on the cliff, which wasn't too difficult because I was able to use Lightmatica to sort of give me a blueprint for exactly what I had to build. Not every build this episode is going to be this large. There's going to be a lot of trees and boats and decorations and stuff like that just to bring the world to life. I almost never see the sunrise in this world because I usually sleep, but for this 100 days challenge, I'm trying to stay awake at night to maximize our time, and it seems like it worked because we're on day 5 and we already built this entire cliff. I think it really helps frame this area, and it's gonna be really cool once we put some houses on top of it as well someday. The problem is we need to connect this down to the ground with like a rolling plane of grass, or instead actually we could use moss. That would give me an excuse to finally make a moss farm. I've always wanted one in this world, so why not just hide it underneath the cliff? I'm going to be making a pretty serious design though, so we need a lot of resources. We need a few stacks of stone. I've been running the smelter a little bit in order to get a bunch of smooth stone and regular stone. We also got note blocks, furnace. We are running a little low on redstone, so I'm going to try to pick some up in some nearby caves. We've now got the few stacks of redstone we need, composters, 14 droppers, and dispensers. I'm heading over to the swamp right now because we need some slime balls for sticky pistons, and hopefully the moon is big enough for some slime to spawn. Yep, there's some right now. All right, now we've got our sticky pistons. I'm all ready to build it now, but since we can't sleep through the night, I'm gonna have to light this whole area up. This should be good enough. Let's start building. Not gonna lie, this farm was much bigger than I expected it to be. But hopefully that means it will be very efficient. So we'll just throw some bone meal in there and flick the lever. Okay, what's going on? Why is this breaking like that? Maybe if I just clear out this cobblestone and return it on or something? Okay, yeah, there's definitely something going on. I don't know what I messed up. I feel like I followed the tutorial exactly, but something's wrong. So I figured out why the farm was broken. I built it the wrong direction, which means exactly what you think it means. I need to tear the entire thing down, rotate it 90 degrees, and build it exactly the same. I decided to pause the timer for this because there's a lot I want to build, and I don't really want to include this in the 100 days. This better be worth it. That took me way too long. I think it's working. I think we finally have a functioning moss farm. I'm really glad we got this farm to work. It's going to produce us a lot of bone meal, and it's honestly just pretty satisfying to watch. While the farm is running, I want to turn our attention to one of our biggest unfinished projects from last episode, finishing the harbor. I'd really like to detail the whole thing and add some boats, but in order for that to happen, we need to dig out the harbor completely. And all that underwater digging would be a whole lot faster if we could get our hands on a conduit. I'm not sure if that's possible. I've never gotten one before, but I think it just involves killing a bunch of drowns. No idea how rare these things are. However, this is a good opportunity for me to also look for sniffer eggs, which I'm gonna need later. Is that a sniffer egg? It sure is. We got our first of at least 2 that we're gonna need. Here it is. Our second sniffer egg. Perfect. However, even though I found both eggs, I'm still yet to find a shell, so I'm probably gonna give up on that. I decided to cut my losses and head back to the harbor and start digging it out. Even though we didn't have the conduit, I just brewed a couple potions of water breathing, and it was just fine. With the harbor dug out, I decided to spend day 24 cleaning up all my junk from all my shulker boxes and also gathering resources for my next big project. It was very intentional that I dug out this harbor, not just because it needed to be done, but it's also because I wanted to dock a lot of boats over here, and now we can do exactly that. I'm gonna design a few sailboats to go in this area here, and I think it's gonna add a ton of life. Building boats is not exactly my strong suit, but I came up with a design and creative I'm actually pretty happy with, so I recreated a couple of them in here. The first one was this red mangrove one. The second is this blue one out on the water, and thanks to pale wood, we have a lot of flexibility with the different white blocks we can use for the sail. I built a final one docked in the harbor. You can see I'm using like chains to try to act as ropes. They're the best I could do. I tried cobwebs, I tried leads, I tried iron bars. This is really the best I can get in terms of a rope. On day 30, it was time to start detailing out the docks. The first thing I wanted to do is actually make them accessible, so I threw in a few staircases. Nice and simple, I just inlaid them into the wall. Next, I ran around adding life to the area with some crates, pots. I made sure to light the whole area up. I used our newfound moss to add some detail to the previously pretty boring roads. And then I built these 2 big cranes to help lift items up out of the harbor. Here's how it turned out. We totally brought this area to life with all these different details. You can see I put in like this fishing rack, a little cutting table probably for fish, ladder entrances in case I ever fall off, and these cranes turned out really cool. This one's like lifting up a barrel. These smaller sailboats are nice. However, I would really like to build a large fishing boat. Before then though, I quickly want to connect our cliff down to the ground, so I just grabbed a bunch of stacks of grass and got to work. I decided not to use moss just because it stood out too much in the terrain, but I think this will eventually be a cool place to build some stuff. Check it out. Our cliff is done over here. And overall, I think it turned out pretty well. Someday we'll have to transform the cave we created in here for the moss farm, but that's not a today project. You know what is a today project? Gathering all the resources for our big fishing boat. I'm really excited to build this. That mostly involved just gathering pretty much every single type of wood. I actually designed this boat well over a year ago to be our starter base, and in my first attempt of the series, I actually built it. However, for the actual seed I ended up going with, I ended up just building the lighthouse, which I think was a good choice, but I'm excited to finally translate this boat into the game. This boat actually turned out sick. I'm so glad that almost a year later I'm able to build this into my world. And oh, look who it is. It's Roger, our mushroom. The harbor still isn't complete, but we brought so much more life to it than it had before. I'm really happy with it. We have two sections of this world right now, the Mediterranean area and the medieval area over there. I want to start connecting the two by kind of putting builds in between. Something I've been wanting to build for a while is a sniffer farm. I've never had those flowers in my world, and I'd really like to try them out. Plus, I think we can make it look like a pretty cool ranch. So I'm going to tame this dog over here real quick. And then I'm going to get to work flattening this area out for the build. I designed this little ranch house to go next to the farm, and I decided I would just build off of the existing style I had for the area, that kind of Mediterranean style I did for my starter village. Now that we're much further in the game though, now I have access to a lot more blocks, and we can do a lot more and really bring this style to a new level. Look who just hatched. We now have 2 sniffers in here, and we can get to work with the collection system for all the seeds they're going to get us. That's going to go underneath here, and we're just going to use one big minecart rail, I think. The sounds that these things make are absolutely awful. I don't know why I ever decided to make a sniffer farm. We've now got the system where the minecart goes through this entire track like this. And then once it's done that, it comes up from the ground through here and drops off all the items it's collected and sends right back off. Hey, look who grew up. Now, hopefully they should start grabbing me seeds before too long. As one final detail, I decided to add in some fields for when the sniffers dig up all our seeds. And I think it'll complete this area really nicely. With yet another light flicked on, it's time to move on to our next task, adding a bunch of custom oak trees. I'm really excited about this one. When I was designing this tree, I had no idea how large it was. When it actually came to the material collection, I needed like a couple dozen stacks of leaves. Oh, that's kind of crazy just for one tree. I think it was worth it though. This is like the best tree I've ever made, and I spent a lot of time figuring out the shape, figuring out the density of the leaves and the overall proportions of it. It all comes together to make a really nice final product. The final little detail I wanted to add to this tree is a nice little swing. I'm going to bring some chains down and then place a couple of these trapdoors. This tree adds so much to this area here. I want to add some more eventually. Before then, let's quickly check on our sniffers. Looks like we got a couple torchflower seeds, which we can breed them with and also start one of our fields. I decided to build another tree next to our wool farm. I really like this build, this overall environment of this area, and I figured this oak tree could only improve it, and I think I was right. Speaking of this area, this is the medieval city I built last year. The whole area is really detailed except for the city itself. I want to try to fix that today. It was one of my big goals for this 100 days. Well, of course, add some of our oak trees to it, but first, I want to tackle the interior of my honey farm. Right now, it looks like this, and I think it could look a whole lot better with not a whole lot of effort. I decided that the interior walls of this honey farm was going to be a back and forth between the strip, pale oak, and bone blocks. So I spent some time gathering both of those materials, using our new moss farm for the bone blocks, and then just chopping down a bunch of pale oak trees. I grabbed a couple looms for building and even a few stacks of mangroves, and I was ready to get right to work on this build. I made sure it was nighttime before redoing the front of the actual bee farm. I replaced the glass with some mangrove trapdoors so you can still see through. And then I started building up these walls with the alternating pattern. I think it's looking really good. I think I am going to try to leave this string duper here even though it's broken now. It's like a good piece of history of the world, you know, before Mojang patched these. I put in a honeycomb floor with some orange carpet on top, made sure all the doorways were accessible, and I spammed around a bunch of candles because, you know, those come from honeycomb. In order to decorate the rest of the walls, I pretty much just added some paintings. And just like that, we transformed what was once a boring farm into a nice looking interior. Before we get too deep into finishing the city, I like to finish up our previous project, the ranch. Pretty much all I want to do to finish this is add a bunch of foliage like trees and grass and some ferns. I actually would love to have a fern farm, which I think would be the perfect use for this build over here. Now, if I ever want a bunch of ferns to build with, I can come in here, grab some from this chest, place them all down, use this crafter to give me some shears, and press the button, and we've just doubled our ferns. How often do I use these? Not a ton, but it's nice to have. Let's run this thing a couple times so we have enough to completely finish our ranch. I built 3 of these cypress trees, which are traditionally found in the Mediterranean area already, so I thought it'd be perfect. Then I placed some flowers and some of our new ferns in the sniffer pen. Then I covered the surrounding terrain in an excessive amount of grass. We finally completed the ranch. I think it turned out great, and it also means we can fully focus on this city. I built up a third oak tree over by the honey farm. I designed all of these by hand in creative mode first, and they take a long time to design. But, I mean, they look so cool. I really want to develop this city more and give it a lot more life and more of a story. That's been kind of hard to do. I've been kind of uninspired for it. Wouldn't be terrible to light it up eventually either. I think a big theme of the city is that it's sort of like a hunting village. I mean, it's deep in a forest, and that's something unique I haven't really ever done before. First thing I want to do is over here. I'd like to install some little stands here that are roasting meat like that. Oh yeah, that's gonna work. This is a trick I've done before, and I really like it. And then something hunting themed over here I'd like to install is an archery range. No! Oh, are you kidding me? Oh, there goes my tree. Let's set ourselves up a little retaining wall like this. Then what I'm going to do is set up 3 different targets. Oh, wait, I'm missing one. There it is. We've now got these 3 targets here, which we can light up and then unlight, which is pretty cool. What's that achievement with the target block? How far away do I have to be? Is it like this far? Is this far enough? Yeah, I'm just going to cheat. Let's go. Hey, we did it. Totally legitimately. There's this hill in front of my city leading down to the water that I've just completely neglected for months and months, and I think I finally want to get around to detailing this. I want to make a path down to the water, have a bunch of different rocks, maybe even like a fishing hut. I think that'd be cool. To get this started, we need to make a shoreline out of mud, which sounds exactly as fun as it was. And I even went the extra mile and connected all the way to the bottom of the river. It was not worth it at all. In order to build the packed mud path all the way down to the water, we needed to collect a good amount of wheat. Once I had that all crafted, I got to work freehanding this path winding down the mountain. You can tell I clearly have no idea what I'm doing. I'm really taking my time trying to make it look as good as possible, and I think it turned out all right. Let's add in some big rocks to break up this terrain. There might be a drowned. Yes! No way! Oh my gosh, these things are so rare on Java. Finally, I've been wanting one of these. I've been wanting one of these for like the last year in this world. Once we finish this area, as a treat, I'll enchant myself this trident with like Riptide or something. That'd be fun. In order to integrate these rocks better into the terrain, I decided to go around and throw in some root dirt surrounding them. I also added a bunch of slabs, pressure plates, stone buttons to act as smaller little stones. I started collecting a ton of rose bushes and poppies, and I just began spamming them around everywhere in little patches. Just add a little bit of pop of color to the otherwise green and gray landscape. Look at the effect this has had on this area. I was trying to make like a untamed looking wilderness on the side of this hill here with all these huge boulders and stuff, and it turned out perfect. This honestly might be my favorite thing we've done all video. My next step with this area is installing some sort of dock out here that we can fish off of. The only material I really needed to gather was oak logs, which didn't take too long. Just chopped down a quick little forest. I started with this base of this like octagon made out of spruce wood, and then we used oak logs all the way to the bottom of the lake, and we pillared up to create our supports. With the supports in place, I spent some time reinforcing the whole thing with more spruce wood, and I even began framing the top section. It's in this sort of plus shape, and I'm using a bunch of barrels so I have plenty of places to store all my loot. Next up, we've got the roof. Super simple. It's just made out of mangrove wood. I use slabs to make it look like it's on a little bit of an angle, but for the most part, it's just a simple roof. I'll probably throw in some netherrack to it to spice it up. It's done. I added the last few details, and this has become a really nice, peaceful place for me to fish. I added a little smoker to smoke the fish, added a little bit of detail to the roof, like I said, and overall, I'm really happy with it. Oh my gosh. I just got a mending book. What? Before I even got any fish. That was only 108 fish caught. It should have taken like 2,000 or 3,000, I think. That's really lucky. We have 2 more big projects to do and not very much more time. But maybe there's just enough time to enchant my trident. Let's stop at our villagers real quick and get a mending book. I'm not going to use the one I fished. I'm keeping that forever. Come on. Ooh, loyalty. And then we can throw channeling and mending on there. I usually get Riptide tridents, so I figured I'd try something new. Anyways, enough of that trident stuff. Let's head back to our base to work on our second to last project. Finally finishing the cliffs by the Italian city. In order to do that though, we will need to collect a little bit of tough and deep slate. Finally finishing this cliff is so satisfying, and it really ties the whole area together. It did take a couple days though. It's time to complete our final build, the museum. I have 7 days left to complete this pretty large build. I don't know if I'll be able to do it in time, but let's hope so. I want to commemorate all the special items in this world, like our first pickaxes and our dragon egg and stuff like that, which is currently just scattered around our world. Why is my horse on top of this mountain? I've genuinely not been able to find this horse for like 6 months. I can't believe he's just been on this mountain the whole time. After a few days of resource collection, I got right to work on building this museum. It's in our Mediterranean area, so of course I went for our normal style. We've got this big circular structure, and next to it is a big bell tower, which actually rings a bell every morning, thanks to some redstone I set up. And of course, it's built right above our little starter base, which I think is pretty cool. Check it out. Our museum is done, and we can commemorate a few of our first items, like our first wooden and stone pickaxes, this leather chest plate we wore on day 1, and of course the dragon egg, saving room for other items as they become important to us. However, you might notice it's day 99, which means we can sleep. And with that, 100 days is complete. This has been a long journey, and we've done actually a lot. We have completely changed this world. Starting in this area, we built this big cliff face with this nice rolling hill behind it. Underneath, we've got this big moss farm we had to build twice, which will give us hopefully enough bone meal to sustain this world. We completely upgraded our docks with all these new details, some sailboats, and our large fishing boat, which we finally got to build in this world. We finally finished this cliff face, a project almost a year in the making. We built our museum and our Sniffer ranch over here, which I think has been pretty efficient. I've taken most of the plants and actually grown them over here, and we can now build with these flowers all over our world, even though they're very weird looking. We've got a few really nice new oak trees that I think turned out really well. Ignore this is for next episode. We've brought some more life to our city, where we got a brand new honey farm interior and a whole lot more going on outside, like some more trees as well as this little archery range. And we finally got around to detailing this hill in front of our city, which really completes this picture. And of course, we've got our fishing hut. Now that we've tied up all the loose ends in our world, it's time to start something new. I have an idea, a really big idea, and it's definitely gonna be my largest project ever. I want to solve transportation in my Minecraft world without using some boring nether tunnel. I know it's way faster, but I want to be able to see my world as I'm traveling. I've ruled out options like horses or minecarts. It really needs to be faster than my elytra, or I'm never gonna use it. And what's faster than elytra? Iceboat highways. I'm gonna design 4 massive roads stretching from the center of my island. Today, we're gonna focus on that east highway, the direction with some of the most intense terrain. That means we're gonna have to build a bunch of tunnels and bridges to cross all this terrain. This is gonna be the most building I've ever done in my life by far, so let's get right into it. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, isn't this blue line going across your world gonna look really ugly? Yeah, it's going to look really ugly, which is why we're gonna spend our episode trying to make this look as nice as possible. In a lot of cases like this one, we're gonna have to build like bridges and stuff like that. So in the medieval district, we'll make it look medieval. In the futuristic district, we'll make it look futuristic. You get the idea. Right now, we just want to get all the ice for the east highway built in, and we can just make it look good later. I am concerned that snow is going to pile up on these though, so I'm probably going to have to get a bunch of string. That's kind of annoying. I honestly think in this situation, the haste beacon might be worth it. I only have 1 beacon in this world right now, so we're just going to have to steal that. Did they change the iron block sound? It sounds different. Much better. Ripping through the snow like this is actually pretty fun. Unfortunately, I only have 1 shovel, so I have to keep repairing it. I'm never really somebody who gets multiple sets of tools. However, we're getting so late in the game that it's probably about time for that. Starting to clear this out. Honestly, this section could be a tunnel. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah, why not? We'll make this a tunnel. That also means less mining for me, which I like. And I already ran out of ice. Perfect. The problem with blue ice is that it doesn't instant mine, so this kind of takes a while. Thankfully, there's a ton of icebergs near my base. However, it's still kind of hard to find these blue ice patches. But after a while, I was able to get a full shulker box, which is hopefully everything we need to complete this side of the road. And I think this is as long as I want to make it. This cherry blossom biome here is roughly the center of our world. So you can kind of picture one day our mega base is going to be this whole big area. I'm building a big mega base, by the way. That won't be for another year or so, though. You don't have to worry about that yet. Now we've got this big blue line across our world. And we need to spend this entire episode kind of connecting it into the areas it's in. Like this medieval section, we're going to have to make it look a little bit more medieval. And we just need to build a lot of bridges. Starting with this one here. While I was mining ice, I found a mushroom biome. I started mining up the stems and I realized this could be a really cool block for the bridge. Not to mention we have a little bit of bone blocks from the moss farm we built last episode. So we'll have something like this with mushroom blocks at the base, 2 blocks up like that, and then a whole ton of bone blocks. Same thing on the other side with bone blocks along the top. Then we're gonna do some sort of archway out of pale oak. Yeah, there we go. That looks good. We just need to do this a lot more times and make it about 9 blocks thick. Gotta put the rest of this acacia in. And let's see. Yeah, I like how that turned out. Let's see. If I look at it from a distance, like way over here in my city. Yep, that looks cool. And it fits the style. And up close, I mean, it looks fine. It needs a lot more work. But first, we need to make a quick visit to the trial chambers. A place we're going to be a lot in this video. In order to make sure mobs don't spawn underneath the bridge, I want to collect some of these lamps. Underneath every single arch, we're going to put in a couple of these lamps. I think this is the fastest way to power them. I really don't know. And it should nicely light them. We have a lot to do, so I don't want to get too crazy into the super fine detailing, but I don't want to leave it looking like this. At the very least, we're going to add some like planter boxes or something like this. I feel like grass isn't really going to grow underneath a bridge like this, so I think we can rip a lot of it out and replace it with like coarse dirt and rooted dirt. And then we can kind of blend it in a little bit better with some of the foliage blocks we have, like the new bushes. Nice and simple, but that works. But with this section done, let's continue down the line. We have this little area here. I'll probably just terraform the mountain a little bit, honestly. I also want to quickly get this tunnel built in, so I inlaid some lights in the walls and the ceiling. To make the ones in the walls less noticeable, I placed red glass on top of them, and then I finished off the ceiling with some jungle planks, nice and simple. For the walls, I figured that tough pale moss kind of combination would look good, and I think it does. Here's the tunnel all finished. It's nice and dimly lit, and I think it looks pretty nice. In terms of this area over here, I don't think it needs anything super fancy. I mean, we are in the medieval area. I think just a simple like cobblestone wall with this sort of gradient will be perfectly fine. I finished it. It's really nothing crazy. I don't know if I love it, but it looks kind of medieval and it's good enough for me for now. I'll probably change it sometime in the future. What I'm really excited to work on right now is setting up a train station. I need to set up a system that'll automatically let me exit the boats, but also automatically dispense them. First, we need a dispenser pointing into water because that's the only way it'll dispense a boat. Otherwise, it just drops it out. I'm also going to hook it to a crafter filled with planks so we can replenish it whenever we need. Next, we're going to run this hopper line around some cacti, which, if you didn't know, actually instantly break boats. Which means now we can drive straight into it and it'll automatically collect and redispense our boat for us. This thing definitely needs a build around it though, doesn't it? I spent a couple hours gathering all of these resources. This train station is really big, so let's not waste any time and build it. Check out our huge new train station. This thing kind of rivals the height and size of our castle, but I kind of had to make it that way because of how high off the ground this road is. So we've either got this staircase on the side to work our way up, or we can just take the bubble car. And we can easily access the inside of our little train stop right here. This side looks a little bit more like an actual train station, and I'm actually pretty sure this is the first time I've used banners in this world, but they add a nice detail, and we can even number our different stations throughout the world eventually. We have one final very large stretch to build in order to complete the east wing, and it's going to be a giant copper bridge. And in order to build it, we need something like 4 shulker boxes of this wax, slightly weathered cut copper something. I think that's the name of it, which is a big project. This probably wouldn't have even been possible without the 1.21 update, because now we can just find a trial chamber and mine the whole thing up. I'm going to set up a little bit of system above this trial chamber that's going to craft TNT minecarts for me and then automatically drop them. And if this somehow works first try, we're going to be able to make a nice system that will dig us a nice big hole to the trial chamber. Let's see what happens. Hold on. Hey, it's working. This might actually work. And we hit the trial chamber. Perfect. I'm going to turn it off now before it destroys the whole thing. For now, I don't really want to actually play through this, so I'm just going to block off the section with these guys. I'm assuming that if I cover them up, they'll just go away. Yo, I just got another trident. What? No way. I didn't even know those could be in the chest. That's gotta be so rare. Now I'm gonna place down 4 shulkers, and I can't leave until they're all full. What I'm gonna have to do for every single one is unwax it like that, and then mine it, which is gonna take a little while. Thankfully, putting it in the stone cutter does give us quite a bit, but I'm not gonna leave this place until I filled all 4 of these shulkers. This is gonna be so much fun. I'm about a shulker box in, and this is so time consuming. This genuinely would just not be possible to build if it weren't for these trial chambers, but it still takes a very long time, and I have to deal with all these guys. I actually did it. I mined a little bit of copper. You know, nothing crazy. Now for the real fun part. We have to wax all of this copper. I don't even know how I'm gonna do that. Maybe I'll just throw it all out on the ground like this. And then also I'm just gonna grab a ton of honey, and hopefully this will work. We've actually done it. I got all the copper now, and I think it's all waxed, hopefully. And that's half of the resources we need. The other half we need is a insane amount of warped fences. I'm talking at least 3 shulker boxes full, which equates to probably like 30 stacks of logs or something like that. And I really debated if I wanted to mine that by hand. I don't want to automate everything in this world because it kind of takes the fun out of some stuff. But having the farm infrastructure in place is going to help me make videos a lot faster. So I think it's worth it to build up a fully automatic nether tree farm. I collected all of these materials, and I think I'm going to build it in this meadow here because I think we're going to build a mountain over this someday. The farm should be ready. I'm just filling it up with all of our bone meal. Hopefully this amount of bone meal should make it run for a very long time. I'm setting up an item sorter for it, but I at least want to have it running while I'm doing that. So let's go ahead and flick the lever and see what happens. There we go. And the TNT is also dropping, which means everything's working. Perfect. Now let me quickly finish this and make it look a little bit better. This isn't nearly enough wood yet. However, it's enough to make a start, to at least make a decent amount of fences. While we let the tree farm run, it wouldn't hurt to actually get started on the first little section of this bridge, just to get an idea of what it's going to look like. And I can't tell you how excited I am to finally build this in my world. I think this turned out super impressive. However, it is only a fraction of what we need to build, and it is incredibly tedious. And I don't normally ask this kind of stuff, but I really appreciate it if you would subscribe. I'm so close to 100k, and I have even bigger plans for the other 3 highways in future videos, so you're gonna want to be subscribed for that. That's all. Back to bridge building. I'm pretty sure this is the biggest project I've ever attempted in Minecraft, and once it's done, it's gonna make something like our castle look tiny. Man, we're gonna have such a sick view of it down here from the medieval city. Even if it doesn't really fit in with the theme, I'm not really worried. I just want to have cool stuff in my world, honestly. I can't actually show you exactly how this goes. First, we've got to place a ton of stone, and then we have this sort of fence gate pattern we're doing with the copper. And no, I don't normally do it all by hand. Like most YouTubers, I use Lightmatica. It just saves me so much time. Why wouldn't I use it? Once we get all the copper in, we put a layer of stone slabs on the top to kind of give a barrier for the boat. Hold up, I ran out of fence gates. Please tell me I saved some. Okay, we have some more warped. That's good. These things are so expensive. All right, we're gonna use Lightmatica to get the rest of this bottom layer in. I keep getting faked out by these blocks. Okay, now we can go ahead and get the arch shape kind of put in. Getting the big ropes in, though, are the easy part, because we have to make all of these warp fences go all the way to the top. That isn't easy at all. I've been still trying to figure out what the best method is for something like that. Of course, these ones are easy. We can just connect them like this. But once it starts getting out of reach, we start having some problems. Like, I mean, we could just pillar up like this, but it's pretty time consuming. I guess it's not the worst option ever, but this does take a while. And then once we get to the top, we have to do some like awkward something like this. Or we could try our other option, which I think will be a little bit more fun. We use Lightmatica, we turn on easy place, and we just hold down like that. Oh, that kind of didn't work, did it? It left a lot of blank spaces. I think we're just gonna stick to good old-fashioned placing blocks. We did it. The other side of the bridge is in. We are halfway done with building this thing, and it is starting to look very impressive, especially from below. Ow. But my nice little fishing hut has kind of been taken over by this giant industrial bridge. But the look of this thing when you're on it makes it so worth it. So what are we waiting for? Let's finish the other half. The bridge is actually done, kind of, almost. This thing looks so impressive with the sun setting behind it and just in general. And it is by far the biggest single build I've done in any of my worlds ever. And I'm really proud of it. I mean, it definitely overshadows everything in this area, but I wanted something big and impressive to look at out this direction. In order to finish it up, I want to make sure that the ice at the bottom is covered with just a darker stone to kind of take the interest away from it. That's why I put this big dirt scaffolding here so that we can just take blocks and cover the entire bottom. Yeah, that looks so much better. I'm happy I took the time to do that. But there are still a few more things we need to get done before we can call this part of the highway complete. Of course, you might have noticed that the highway just kind of ends up here. That's because I want to do a real big station here eventually. I'm just not sure what that's going to look like yet. And that'll be a whole separate video on its own. But we still need to finish a large part of this bridge, like getting all the lights in place. Obviously, this is not going to cut it. And the bridge right now is going to be spawning a ton of mobs unless we do something. So I think I'm just going to continue this pattern all the way down with the lanterns and these chiseled stone blocks. Much better. Now we're not going to be stopped by a bunch of mobs while we're trying to get around here. Hold on. We probably need to do something about this. We'll just throw lanterns in here. Now for this section, I'm tempted to keep it kind of consistent. Actually, I have a better idea. Hold on. We already have like the perfect orange light in the game. Then we can go through and light all of these up. And I'm even going to place a bunch of trapdoors on top. I think we made the right choice with these lights. I really like them. The only problem is we're still getting these little snow spots in the middle where the light doesn't reach. So we're going to have to use a little bit of string, but nothing crazy. And it's really hard to see on the ice. With all my builds, especially one like this, I like to go into a bit of a polishing phase at the end where I add all the little small details. One thing that you might have noticed I like to do is build trees. So I think we should add a couple up here just to kind of incorporate it into the environment a little bit more, if that even makes sense. It's a giant bridge. Look at that shot right there. I intentionally made it to look like it was trimmed back a little bit from the path, and it doesn't obscure the bridge at all, which is nice. And from the ground, it's a little weird, but trees in real life aren't perfect, so I think it looks fine to me. I also quickly cleaned up the ground around here. I think it looks way better, but I can't wait any longer. I need to test out this highway finally now that it's done, and we can really get moving on this thing. This is awesome. And we just fly past this bridge. Oh my gosh. And into the center of our world. Just like that. I would say this is my first mega build in Minecraft, and I'm excited to do more, much bigger ones in the future. That, of course, will include the other 3 branches of the highway. This highway project is so fun, and I think I want to tackle the west wing next. However, quickly before we do that, the world is officially 1 year old, so I think it'd be fun to take a look back at everything we've done so far. I'm going to take you through everything we've accomplished in the last 12 months, and also talk about my plans for the next year of this world. Let me take you all the way back to day 1. It all started right here with our starter base. I wanted to create something simple but unique and iconic to the world, and I think I really pulled it off. This still might be my favorite build in this world. I don't know if that's crazy to say because I've built a lot, but I just really like this starter base, and it acted as like my home and my storage room for many months. The problem I had though is once I built this, I mean, I had planned this series so much, except for the fact that I didn't actually plan anything I was going to build. So my next project was establishing the style for this area. I built up this Mediterranean village like this. I don't think this village has a ton of purpose other other than it holds a few of my librarian villagers. That's about it though. And it was very early game, so although it's a pretty primitive build style, I still like it. I still think it looks cool. And I also did a lot of terraforming at the start of this world. I forgot to mention, I haven't been back here in a long time, but I also, in that same episode, built a little XP farm over here. This was my main source of XP for the early game. It was a little skeleton grinder, nothing crazy. But this has a cool little interior with, it's supposed to be like a fisherman's hut, I think. My next project in the following months was coming up for a grander vision for the world. So 1 year ago, I created like a state of the island sort of video where I talked about all my future plans. And in that video, I built this big map room for the first year of our world, which we'll get back to a little later because we need a new one. But while building this, I officially decided I was going to separate my world into a bunch of different districts. We'll have different styles like futuristic, medieval, and the Mediterranean village we're in now. And I kind of loosely marked it out then. My plans have changed a little bit since then. My plans have changed a lot. But that's still generally the concept I have for this world right now, and I'll explain more of that later. After unfortunately kind of getting forced into a few-month break, I really wanted to get back into this world with a huge new project. So I started work on my medieval city. This was a project broken up into 3 chunks, 3 separate videos, each with 3 huge goals. The first, and probably the smallest, was this city. It's pretty cool, nothing crazy, but it had been a while since I had built like this, and it was nice to finally get back into my comfort zone and build something like this. Although a lot of it's aesthetic, there's also some function to this place, such as my honey farm being in here, and an old string duper that sadly doesn't work anymore. This building was my storage room for a while, and more recently I turned this big tower into a like fern, tall grass type of farm. This is supposed to be like a hunting village, that's why there's meat cooking out here and an archery range back here. And we've also got a nice little fountain surrounded by the rest of these houses, which don't have any function yet or probably ever. That same episode, I also worked on building this huge river system flowing through the area. It was super time consuming, but it was very worth it. This thing ends down by the lake and heads all the way through the forest, up the mountain, and through the forest that way. We'll get back to that. We've got this inn that I repurposed from my hardcore world. This was originally my hardcore starter base, and I just built it in here because I really like it. I especially like this interior we did. We have all these different rooms, which are all furnished, which is cool. But once we had finished the city, it was time for phase 2, the big castle. This thing is serving as my base currently, and it's pretty much got everything I need. A storage room, a random axolotl, a super smelter, which is decommissioned for some reason. I kind of forget why. And a nice little living room with a fire where I can sit and relax. Once we had finished the castle, I moved on to working on the giant autumn leaf birch forest. This forest is super cool. I think it's really immersive. I like how it turned out a lot. This was of course a huge project, and I had to gather a ridiculous amount of resources. One of my favorite views of this area is probably from this angle. We have the nice little pond with a boat in it, and then we're just surrounded by the trees. I'd like to actually expand the forest maybe out and over here. That'd be cool. But this is also where our wool farm is. I like this design. We'll be back here in a second to talk about why there's a giant bridge, but first let's move on to our next project in this world. That, of course, was the Italian village. This project really evolved from my original vision, but I'm super happy with how it turned out. Originally, I built all these colorful houses. I was going to store villagers inside of them, which I did, but then we moved on to building this giant cliff, which holds my moss farm, and this whole port with a bunch of sailboats and even our large fishing boat, all of which I'm very happy with. The city itself has these cool palm trees, maybe the best trees I've built in this world, this copper fountain, and then various villager professions in each house, such as these farmers I get my golden carrots from, more farmers. I believe this one has Fisherman. Yep. This guy is our mason villagers, one of our more important, maybe the most important building because of how much bricks and quartz we can get. And our bank, where we can trade iron from our vault and convert it into emeralds. No, I did not name these villagers. A mod did it, and now I can't get rid of them, so they're named that forever now. I've never built anything like this before, so I'm really proud with how it turned out overall. Along the road, we also built a few things like this museum, which just so happens to be right above our little day 1 starter base from a year ago, which I think is pretty cool. It's where we store our dragon egg and some other stuff like our pickaxes, our original pickaxes, and our original armor, as well as a cool flower, I guess. Then we have the Sniffer Ranch, a more recent project where we farm the Sniffer seeds. These guys are kind of annoying, but we have a farm for them, and I can use them as much as I want in our world, which is nice. I've been experimenting with building these big oak trees lately, and I think I like how they're turning out. Finally, we have this. This is the beginning of our highway. I want to make 4 highways stretching from the center of my world, And in our last video, we built the East Branch, which goes all the way across to the center of our world. We go through this tunnel, past the train station, and over this giant bridge, and right into the middle of our world. This bridge was a fun project. You guys really enjoyed it. Of course, it did take me quite a while. And then I also added our first ever train station to this area, and you're pretty much caught up on this world, which begs the question, what's next? In order to plan out our next year of this world, I want to work on an important project. That is going to be working on a new map room for year 2. I'm going to lock this one here and then start updating a new one for the rest of the year. And I'm going to build that new one over here, probably like up there, I want to say. I already have a lot of the materials. I got a lot of the stone and terracotta already. There's some more random stuff I need though, like a bunch of gold, a bunch of the raw gold actually. I need a half a stack of this stuff, and this stuff is very expensive. I think with how much we need, it might be smart to head to a mesa biome. If I remember right, there's a lot more gold here than anywhere else, so I think this might be smart. All right, there we go. I'm seeing some now. There's all the gold we need. We also need a decent amount of mangrove wood. To go with our gold, we also need honeycomb, which is not a problem. All right, we've got all the materials now, I think, which means we can kind of start clearing this area out, and I'm really excited to build this up. Our map room for year 2 is now all built up. I just took the old design and recolored it, and I think I really like it. It's the first time I've used this blue color in my world, I think, and I think it matches like the yellow forest really well. I also built in our task board for year 2, all my different projects ideas for the next year. But before we do that, I first want to kind of work this more into the terrain and also work on getting our map copied over. For right now, they'll both be identical, but obviously as the year progresses, this one will update. It's going to take almost a stack of maps, so it's about time we cure these guys in here. In the meantime, I'm just gonna trade for a bunch of emeralds. Now we should be able to get our maps super easily just by trading with these guys. It's time for the fun, long process of taking each map individually, creating a copy of it, and then locking one of the copies and placing it back. That was fun. Placing in the new map, it took me way too long to realize I had built it too small. There we go, the map is copied over. I would not wish that on anyone. That was not fun, but it's here now, and we only have to do this every year. But let me quickly make a little path going down to the main area. We've got a nice little path winding through the woods, but I think another thing that would even bring this more into the terrain would be just bringing the forest a little bit more towards it with a couple trees. I don't think it'll take too much, and I think it can only improve the environment of this area. There we go, got a few trees in. Now all we have to do is add some of the foliage around. For example, some pots. I'm also going to try to recreate some of the bushes I made down there in the forest. See if I can remember what I did. Alright, a creeper just blew up. Let's see the damage. Oh my gosh, that's so annoying. Now we have the joy of piecing this map back together. As I was saying, I put in just the right amount of foliage, I think, which means we can move on to talking about the future. What are we going to get up to in this world over the next year? I have 9 projects in mind right now. However, keep in mind, all this stuff is subject to change, but I at least like to have some direction for my next year in this world. First one's a big one, finishing the highway. We've got a quarter of it done right now, but I'd love to have the other 3 segments stretching in the other 3 directions done by the end of this next year. That is a big goal, but something I want to get done sooner than later to help me kind of expand out into the rest of this world, because I'm kind of just confined over here right now. Speaking of that, we need a train station or a boat station, I guess, for the east wing. Our highway abruptly ends right now, so we're gonna have to make a large tower here to kind of end off the road. That's another big project, and I have no idea what that's gonna look like yet, but I'm excited to find out. In this same area, I'd also like to do a lot of work and kind of finish this harbor area here. I'd like to make this area feel a little bit more complete by sort of finishing this island peninsula thing off, but I mean, not a super top priority, so that probably will be a thing that kind of happens later on. Another thing I'd love to do is build on the mountain behind this little thing, this little hill right here. I can just picture a huge stone castle on this, which could be like a rocket factory or maybe a villager trading hall. I'm not quite sure yet, but I feel like this hill really needs something because it kind of stands out in a bad way right now. So I plan on just removing the snow and doing something cool there. Similarly, I'd like to terraform the meadow. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's this whole area here. I'd like to make this a little bit more of a mound to, for one thing, cover up this tree farm, but also have a backdrop for all the kind of regions that are around this area. Not like going to build height or anything, just something with a little bit more height to make this more of an interesting view. I think it's a good goal for this year to start 2 more regions. What I mean by that is like this is my medieval region, obviously, and then the Mediterranean one's back over there. And I don't have to build anything too crazy in them yet, but I'm picturing maybe more of like a modern urban area over in this area. It's super flat right there. And then I would like to put a futuristic district somewhere more up here. So that's another good option, but who knows? Maybe I'll come up with something else before then. Something kind of random is nether farms. It's kind of a weird one, but I feel like it's a necessity in the late game. The stuff you can get from a gold farm and especially a bartering farm is just so important for speeding up the late game. And we could probably make a cool build out of it too, so I'm kind of excited for that. And then we've got my ocean monument project. Up here in this big north body of water, this is an ocean monument. I want to drain a huge area around it and build something really cool. I'm not going to spoil it, and also it's not something we're going to get done in a year. This is more of just like a starting the monument project this year type of thing. And that's everything I have loosely planned for this year. It's very possible none of this gets done, but for right now, I feel like a lot of these are very doable and will make fun projects and interesting videos. With a new plan for this world, I think it's time to continue our highways. Last time, I built the East Road, which required a huge bridge in our first station. Today, though, we're heading west, which presents a whole new set of challenges. We need to build a brand new bridge and 3 new stations themed to different parts of my island, all of which are in build styles I've never tried before. But if all goes well, we should have one continuous 2,000 block highway by the end of this video. I have kind of a dilemma here. That was the direction we went last time, and this time we're heading this way. The only problem is the world is much higher up going east and south than it is going north and west. As you can see, it really flattens out over here, and I really don't want a giant bridge going hundreds of blocks in the sky. I don't want to have to build something around that. I don't want such an eyesore in my world. So I think we'll stay at this height for a little bit, but once we get to the water, I'm going to drop it down much closer to the water. This is the distance we're going to be dropping down. And obviously dropping down won't be a problem. The problem is, how will the boat get back up? I have no idea. I need your help in the comments to figure out a quick system to get the boat back up there. I'm sure there's some perfect solution out there, but I'm not sure what that is right now. So for now, I'm not even going to worry about it. And having this closer to the surface is going to look so much better. You'll see why in a bit. You're only seeing half the story. For every piece of ice I place, I have to find a blue iceberg and mine the whole thing down, and it won't even insta-mine, so this takes a while. We have got all of the ice placed down, stretching across the west wing of the world. As you can see, it goes on for quite a while before spitting out up here at this ice biome. I'm gonna update our map real quick. As you can see, we have this big lake here we've got to cross. So I think our first project is going to be building the large brick bridge that's gonna go right here. Perfect time for it to start raining, actually, because mining bricks normally sucks. However, I've actually planned for this. Ignore the terraforming, that's for a different video. But past me actually set up a villager trading hall over in this Italian village, which has this building here, which is pretty efficient at getting us bricks. There's over 3 layers of mason villagers here. So all we need to do is just take our iron and convert it into emeralds, and then head across the street and just buy up as many bricks as possible. This also gets me a crazy amount of XP, which I will take. It's still not going to be the fastest process though. Okay, finally we've got just enough bricks. That took a lot longer than I was hoping, but it was still much easier than mining it, of course. There are still plenty more blocks we need to gather for this thing, however. We also need to collect a lot of this specific copper block. Yep, I don't think I've ever used this in my life, but it looks pretty cool. Another thing we need is quite a bit of dark oak. I have a little bit, but this is not nearly enough. That should be no problem, though. We can just grow a bunch. The other block I need a stupid amount of is granite. So we can grab a quick little bit of granite from our mine. And finally, we need end rods, which would of course be right here. There we go. Might seem like kind of a weird combination of blocks, but that's for a good reason. I'm trying out a brand new build style because the west of our world, specifically these big flat plains out here, are going to be our modern day city district. I'm not talking like super modern houses like what you're picturing maybe. I'm just talking about a modern day 2000s American city with like suburbs and big city and rural areas, and we have these big plains that we can build all of that on. So across this lake we're gonna have a huge brick bridge, which I think is gonna look really cool. So let's get to building that. By the way, real quick, I want to say this video is probably going to be the video that pushes us over 100k, which has been like a lifelong dream of mine. So if you want to subscribe quickly before I do hit 100k, that would be awesome, because I still have more highway videos in the future and a lot more crazy projects I want to do in this world, so you're not going to regret it. Anyways, this bridge is really cool. I'm happy with how it turned out. And for my first time trying out this more modern style, I think it's pretty cool. This streetlight design is pretty simple, but I like it. It kind of surprised me how long this took. It shouldn't have surprised me. This thing is huge, and also it uses some pretty expensive materials like these bricks. But building with the expensive materials paid off, I think, because it looks really cool. We've still got a whole lot more left on this road, however. And I've already gathered materials for our next project, building up our next boat station here. And I think I actually want to make it a gas station. I mean, what says an American city more than a gas station? So I'm going to start laying out some sidewalk here, and we can kind of outline where the actual parking lot and gas station are going to go. Here's the outline for the entire gas station, and it's looking good. However, some of this terrain surrounding it is still a little bit too high. Even though I built in the flattest plane in existence, it's still going to require a little bit of digging. We've got everything flattened out and ready for building. Also, have you ever noticed how weird this biome that we're in is? We're in a big flat plains biomes, and then there's just a big iceberg glacier area in the background. I think I might end up building a big forest on the edge there to kind of hide the transition, because that is a little bit unique. That's cool though. And clearly I must not hate the look of ice if it's what we're using to build like half of this world. Anyways, let's get to paving this whole area. And I have a really cool trick I'm going to be doing. This is like my favorite part of the entire build. I want to put like parking spots, and what we can do for those is just take some signs and cover them with carpet, and the top still show, giving us these perfect little parking spots. I didn't come up with this. I forget where I learned it from, but it is so cool. Now that we've paved the whole thing, we have a few different paths we could take here. We could build up the lampposts or the sign or the actual gas pump. But I think the first thing we should do is work on the building that goes here. This is going to be half store and half of like a repair garage, which is pretty cool. Man, that looks so cool. I'm actually so proud of how this build turned out. The only annoying thing is these doors are taking forever to oxidize. Who cares though? I'm also installing this dumpster next to the build. It's a simple design, but I like it. And then I'm going to throw up some of these fluorescent lights on the ceiling to light the place up. Don't worry, I'll actually put an interior on this in a little bit, but let's focus on the exterior first. Starting, of course, with the covered gas pumps out front. I built up some lamps. They're about as simple of a design as it gets, but they turn on at night, which is pretty cool. And finally, we have to build up the gas station sign, which will display how much the gas costs and all that normal stuff. It's done, and this turned out so cool. This might honestly be one of my favorite builds in the world. I don't know if that's crazy to say. We even got some text up on the sign. We got gas and then 99 cents. Yeah, I never said anything about this world being realistic. I want to add a good amount of vegetation to this area. So I think for these front planter boxes, we're just going to have a big row of flowers. And then for the other areas, I'm going to spam down mostly ferns with a little bit of grass in between, and then bone meal all of it up. And that kind of simulates some nice looking bushes along all the edges. Before we turn this into an actual working station for our boats, I would like to quickly put a small interior on here. While designing this, I kind of realized how lacking Minecraft is in decoration blocks, but we're still going to try my best. I'm building some shelves here, and all these books are meant to look like different food items that they would have stocked. I'll set up a little bit of a counter space here with this to kind of look a little bit like a cash register. A shelf up top here. I'm going to decorate this shelf with some random stuff, and then I even want to throw up some paintings up here to sort of simulate advertisements, which might be kind of floating around the area. Yeah, I like that. This floor does need to change though. I don't want it to be the same as the concrete outside. I think that maybe just a simple tile pattern will really get the idea across with calcite and diorite. Over here is designed to be more of a garage, like workshop area. So I'm going to put up a few shelves and have like a tire on there. I want to kind of separate the two areas a little bit better. Maybe just a little archway would do the trick. Yeah, that feels better already. And then a little barrier so nobody gets run over with a car. And I'll put some chains hanging down for whatever reason. Why not? And I think I want to change this floor. It's kind of bothering me. I'd rather use a darker color. There we go. Having a little interior in here is miles of improvement. Even though it's just for looks, it'll be a fun little thing to come across when you're exploring the world. Across from the gas station, we need to set up the drop-off station for the boats. We now have the full setup for if I want to stop my boat while we're in the city. I just drive in here and drop off the boat just like that. I want to end off this highway with a really big train station, or I guess boat station build. This station will actually have sort of a purpose because I would like to make two more smaller routes going up to this northern snowy part and this southern snowy part, which means this train station will have to act as a junction point to go up and down the west side of my world. This is a very kind of unique, difficult build to design. I wanted to combine like a train station with a like ski lodge cabin thing, and it's kind of loosely a giant version of this house by Frank Lloyd Wright, which I think has some cool angles I tried to recreate on a very, very large scale. This iceberg is where it's going to be built, so I'd like to leave a little bit of the iceberg for the design, but most of it's got to go. This here should give you a better idea of how big this thing is going to be. And this is going to involve many hours of material collection, like usual. So let me get to that. I'm not sure if you've ever tried to gather an entire shulker of strip spruce wood before, but if you haven't, let me just tell you, it is a life-changing experience. Anyways, I also knocked down an entire forest outside of my city because I decided to build the floors out of the bee nest block, which is like really expensive for some reason. And I even had to build a cactus farm to supply all the green dye I needed for both green terracotta and green concrete. The rest was pretty easy though, which means we can get started with this huge news station. Check it out, our brand new boat station is done. This is a very unique build, kind of that like weird mid-century modern kind of style, and I think it turned out cool. Inside we've got this junction to take us up north or south, and then we've got this mechanism here, of course, to pick up the boats. And we even have plenty of places to sit and wait for a boat to arrive. This doesn't really make sense, but just ignore that. And then we've got this area here. This would be like a ticket booth place, and then maybe we'd have some food stands over here. I'll build all that stuff later when I have some extra time, but I think it's really unique and really cool. I like how I was able to incorporate the iceberg into it. That's one of my favorite parts. But if we want to officially say that this iceboat highway is over 2,000 blocks long, we need to build one more road and one more station leading us to the snowy biome, which will be like a Christmas district or something later on. So let's get right to it. This new branch heading south is all built up, and I won't be actually building much in this area for a long time, except for the boat station, of course. It's nothing crazy. It's just a simple American train station type design. So let me gather the materials and get right to it. Here is our train station for the snowy area. It's nice and simple, but I really like how it turned out. If you can't tell, I love building with this red mangrove color, and I think it fits like the snowy biome really well. Real quick, I can't forget to set up the actual system to exit the boat. There we go. To add the final little bits of detail this area needs, I want to throw in a few pine trees. There we go, 2 new trees, and that makes a big improvement on the area overall. Before we leave this area though, I'm trying to come up with a quick design for this bridge here. So we're just gonna space out pillars like this, and I think we can just go and make a sort of cross hatch design. This is a very weird and kind of tedious process. What did I just do? How did I mess it up this bad? As I was saying, this is kind of weird and tedious, but it gives a pretty good look. I'm totally out of dark oak wood, but at least you have a general idea of what we're going to do here, and I'm so excited to come back to this area in the future. I have so many cool ideas. Building all these highways are really inspiring me to expand my world. I'm really excited to come back to this area in the future, honestly. But I think now it's time to ride the highway from start to finish to see what it's like. We start our journey right here by our Mediterranean district and our medieval district, and we head towards the big bridge. This video has been pretty special to me, seeing as this is almost definitely my final video I'll be posting before I hit 100k. That number has always kind of been my dream ever since I started this channel 6 years ago. I kind of feel like that's when you make it as a YouTuber. I don't know if that makes sense. I always felt like I would hit this goal someday. I really enjoy YouTube, and I felt like I wouldn't stop until I hit it. However, there were certainly some times in the journey where I kind of felt like I got trapped into making videos I didn't really want to make just to please the algorithm, I guess. And it was times like that I wasn't really sure if I wanted to continue YouTube. However, what's really cool about this series is that I've literally just been doing whatever I want to do, and I've nearly doubled my subscriber count doing exactly that. And I'm more excited than ever to keep building in this world, and I hope to maybe one day hit 1 million subscribers in this world. That's a big goal. Not many people do it, but I think it'd be so cool. And I ended up hitting 100k that night, and to celebrate, I think it's time for one more huge project. Next to my Minecraft base is this giant meadow, and I hate it. The grass color is ugly, there's explosion holes everywhere, and there's this weird snow mound that totally is out of place. My dream is to transform this entire biome into a totally new environment with cliffs, custom trees, water flowing throughout, but I want to try to do it all by hand with no creative planning. No blueprints, no modeling tools, just good old survival Minecraft. I'm very scared to start a project like this, one where I'm not doing any planning beforehand, because it is very possible this will not turn out well. But I think the best way to get into this is just to kind of start out simple. The very first thing I want to do is get rid of all this snow. Having snow here really makes no sense at all, and it also kind of sticks out in a bad way, so I think if we get rid of this, replace it with moss, turn this into more of a stony cliff, we can kind of convert this hill into the start of our first mountain. I've already gathered quite a bit of materials for this. I had a lot of stone in my chests already. I raided my moss farm for a bunch of moss. Then I spent a while mining up a shulker box of andesite and a couple shulker boxes of tuff. I have no clue if that's going to be enough, but I think it'll at least be a decent start. To make all the terrain consistent, I set up some sort of rules for myself. In this case, all the flatter areas are going to be moss, and then the steeper areas have to be stone. And in order to make this project a little bit more manageable, I need to split it into kind of 3 phases, I guess. First of all, just the raw building with the stone and moss, and then going in and adding texturing to all the stone and even maybe a little bit to the moss, I don't know. And then finally adding all the vegetation. I'm really excited for that phase because we're going to be able to make this area super immersive. Wow, this looks so much better. And we have a better idea for what the rest of the terrain is going to look like. But before we continue upward, I first want to tackle this entire area that can still produce snow. We need to cover every block with either foliage, a moss carpet, or a stone slab. So we need to gather up quite a bit of foliage. Now that I think about it, I should probably texture the rock first. I realize I'm jumping ahead to the other phases already. However, that's the only way we're going to keep the snow away, because the snow falling is going to drive me crazy if we don't. This entire snowy area should be snow-proof, which also has the side effect of making it mob-proof, which is pretty nice. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with this yet. Maybe I'll extend the forest up to here, but we can worry about all the little stuff later. I want to get back to focusing on the big picture, really just trying to shape out all of these cliffs. So I'm going to start with a bit of a gradual hill over here. When terraforming more gradual hills like this, I really like just making this sort of lines at each height increase. This makes it super easy to figure out what looks good and then just fill it in later. That way I'm not breaking a bunch of moss if I mess something up. It's starting to snow, which means we'll be able to see exactly what moss spots we missed, which we certainly did miss some. Apparently I didn't moss any of this. I ended up placing moss pretty late into the night. Thankfully, this should be the last time we have to deal with snow during this project. The next morning, it was finally time to add some height to this mountain. To be honest with you, I'm not great at building cliffs like this by hand, but I'm really hoping taking on this project is going to make me a lot better. We'll see if I'm better at it towards the end of the video. On this side of the mountain, I made the cliff super steep, which I didn't end up being a huge fan of, and I kind of changed it up later. The cliff is expanding. It's getting a whole lot bigger, and I'd like to make another one all the way up to here. This seems like a good height for this particular cliff, and it's gonna be about that wide, I think. But I have an idea. I don't know if it's gonna work, but I want to try it. We already have all our yellow trees, but what if we scattered our mountain with a bunch of brand new orange trees? I think that would honestly be pretty cool. This is my first time looking at it. Let's see how this turned out. I wasn't planning on having a theme of like fall colored trees, but I think the yellow up into a few scattered orange trees would actually look really cool. And maybe the ones higher up on the mountain will make smaller to kind of give the illusion that the mountain is bigger than it is. Kind of messing with perspective, I guess. Going into our third day, I just wanted to focus on getting these cliffs put up. I think this is how tall our first mountain is going to be. It's a decent height, but I like the one behind it to be a little bit taller. And this is sort of our testing one anyways, just to learn the style. I was already a little concerned about how flat this side was going to be, so I added a little jut out here. I think it just adds a little bit more shape. This cliff right here is going to be super tall, and I feel like it's really calling for a waterfall. I'm going to try to lay one out right now. This is definitely a very weird way to visualize it, but I think it could turn out. I have a vision. The vision will be a lot clearer when I terraform around this, of course. We've got some blocks around the waterfall now. Let's see if it flows all the way down. If I just put some water right there, surely it... Okay, close. Surely it flows all the way down. Maybe not. Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. That's super blue for some reason. It must be this biome just making the water super blue. But I don't mind it at all. In fact, I'm kind of tempted to make it into one of those green waterfalls with like the particle effects. But that's really expensive, and I don't know if I want to straight up copy his idea or not. Anyways, while I'm considering what to do with this waterfall, I think I'm going to continue just placing stone. It has expanded quite a bit. I've got these 3 new sections up here, and as I've been building, I've kind of realized that I'm not as big of a fan of these just huge, really tall cliffs. They're hard to make look right, but I think this more incremental, like stair step kind of build is a lot better looking. So I'm gonna try to do that for the rest of this one, and also the other big one that's gonna go here, because we're building the smaller mountain of the 2 right now, which is kind of scary to say because this is already taking a very long time. Let me just spend a few more hours building this up and see if we can't get it mostly done. I feel like we can. I would say there's a pretty big pattern to this, although it looks very random. I've kind of just gotten into one single style of just gradually going up like this, and every once in a while jutting it out by 1 or 2 like that. I'm here placing in the final few blocks, I believe, to finally close in this mountain. I think that should be everything, unless I'm forgetting a big chunk. Nope, looks like it is all sealed in. It's very repetitive, but I would also say it's kind of like creatively challenging as well, trying to make the shape look just right. But I think I really got better and better at it. Like by the time we got back here, I think this is probably the best that it looks. And I can't wait to put all the different foliage and stuff on top and all the orange trees. It's gonna look so cool. I'm actually so excited. Normally when I'm building, I know what the final product is going to look like already. So it's like, so it kind of takes some of the excitement out of it. But not only you not knowing, but also me not knowing how it's going to turn out makes this a lot more fun. I'm glad I decided to kind of stray away from these taller cliffs. It looks fine, but it's not my best work. But before we add any of those details, I want to put in the other mountain. I think I want to start shaping it out here. I want to have a pretty narrow like canyon in between where a path is gonna go. If you can't tell, I was totally eyeballing it, and I'm realizing now I'm probably gonna have to make one side of it pretty tall in order to hide the tree farm, but that's not too big of a deal. Okay, maybe this is a bigger project than I thought, actually seeing it laid out like this, but I think it's gonna look cool, and it's gonna cover up our tree farm, which is nice. I'm realizing we should probably light it up beforehand, and actually I should make sure this is all the way lit up. It's definitely not. Okay, yeah, I missed a big area. Let me get that real quick. At this point, it was time for me to start building up the moss connecting to the outline. I wanted to have a pretty solid looking base because this is going to be a very tall mountain. Eventually, of course, the goal is to get rid of all of this ugly green grass color and replace it with moss. I'm getting distracted, and I kind of want to see how tall I want to make this cliff. It needs to be over the tree farm and a little bit taller than that one, so maybe here. I think it needs a few more blocks. Yeah, that seems about right. Okay, back to moss placing. I want to get all the way around this. So I managed to get the base of the second mountain all the way attached to the ground. Mostly, we'll do that later. I think I want the side facing the bridge to be the most gradual increase, while the side with the tree farm is going to be a bit more of a steeper cliff just to account for hiding this thing, obviously. And I'm ready to get started on it, except I think I'm completely out of stone. Yeah, I have like 5 stacks left, and I'm probably gonna need 5 or 6 shulker boxes to do this all, so we should probably head to the mine. I have a spot out here in the center of my island that I have outlined, which has my kind of mine area. I've definitely put a dent in it for sure, but I'm just gonna pick a spot and keep mining. That should hopefully be enough stone. Let's head back to the project and see if we can't build that entire second mountain. I'll see you guys in like a week, probably. After countless hours of work, we finally got this cliff to a point that we can begin detailing it, this part that I'm actually really excited for. We now have this sort of canyon we can walk through. Of course, we'll have to clear this out, maybe put in a little bit of a path, but I think there's a lot of really cool angles to check this thing out from. And I even made an entrance to the nether tree farm, which reveals a little secret. I may not have done the entire thing, I guess. To be fair, I only have so much time to work on this video, and also maybe I want to end up expanding it in the future, so we're going to leave it open for now. And we're going to get to the actually interesting part, adding all of the details, the trees, the rocks, the foliage, maybe some water running through. I'm not quite sure. But the very first thing I want to do is add the shading to all the rocks. I think it's important to kind of differentiate each of these little layers, and I want to do that with tuff. Going in here like this. Okay, of course there's a creeper right behind there. We'll just ignore him. And kind of adding some darker spots to the bottom. And I think that'll kind of help separate it a little bit, I'm hoping. The tuff shading looks pretty good. It's definitely more of a more close-up detail. From a distance it's harder to tell, but it does give a little bit more separation between each of the sections, and maybe I'll come back in later and add some lighter colors to the top. But right now I want to continue with the details. I want to start with the biggest stuff and then work our way down to the smallest stuff. I think I'll go with the water features first, and then trees, and then rocks and stuff like you understand, and keep working our way down until it's like the little grass and foliage and stuff. So let's start with our existing waterfall here. It looks fine, but we can make this a lot better pretty easily. I think I want to make the rocks surrounding the water quite a bit darker, and we're going to do that with the side of deep slate texture and some tuff. Yeah, just that little bit of detailing makes such a difference. I'm actually going to put a little bit more of a pond down here for the water to build up in, and maybe it'll have a stream running off of it. I'm not really sure. Let's fill this in with water and see how it looks. Yeah, that's a huge improvement. Of course, I can't add this degree of detail to every little bit of this area, at least not in this video. But having highlights of a lot more detail like this will help the area feel a lot better. I also feel like some rocks might improve this area. Yep, that is even better. I also think it is the perfect home for our axolotl, Randy, who has been in this little pen for like 1,000 days. So let's bone meal this a little bit and then see how Randy likes his new home. There you go. Enjoy that, I guess. And I'm sure he's gonna find a way to die, but that's fine. Let's try to put a few more smaller streams into this somewhere. I'm thinking I might start one like here, I guess. One that kind of flows down this way. Maybe takes a little turn and continues down here. It's a little rainy out, but let me show you my kind of finishing touches to this waterfall. I just kind of split the stream into two paths, and then I have these little ponds that are filling up with water down here. I think I wouldn't mind putting one more smaller one, like right here maybe. Right now, I'm honestly really just excited about getting some trees put in. And I hate to say it, but that whole no planting thing is not entirely true, because there's no way I'm going to design like 50 to 100 unique trees in survival mode by hand. That's not happening. Instead, I'm going to jump into creative mode and design 6 or 7 more of these trees and then just scatter them around with Axiom. Obviously, I'm still going to have to build it all in survival, so it's not like this is going to be much faster, but I don't want to spend the rest of my life on this video necessarily. To be fair, this still wasn't exactly planned. I had no idea I was going to be making orange trees at the start of this video. By the way, it's kind of wild that this area used to look like this. I mean, the meadow is already completely transformed, let alone the entire yellow forest that's here right now. It's like unrecognizable. And if you're wondering if I have a certain like method to this, I definitely don't. I'm totally winging it. I have no idea what I'm doing. I kind of just lay out a weird base shape like this and just keep placing blocks until it looks good, I guess. Let's get ready to add all of those trees into our area. I think we're going to have about maybe 50 or 60 even, which requires a lot of materials. For example, about 12 stacks of tuff walls. Tuff is what we're going to use for every single trunk. There we go. That's more than enough. I also need about 16 stacks of orange terracotta, which we don't have right now. So let's start with that shulker of orange terracotta. I also need over a shulker box of red sandstone, which is annoying because it doesn't generate naturally, and the only way to get it is combining 4 sand into a single piece of sandstone, meaning I have to mine a lot more than I really should. It'll be worth it though, I hope. We now have a ton of red sandstone that needs to be taken and smelted down, which is going to be a bit of a process. There we go. We got all the red sandstone we need smelted. These 5 shulkers should be about everything I need, hopefully, which means we can get right to work on building up about 50 or 60 trees in this area. I'm so excited to see how this turns out. I believe that should be all the trees, which is crazy to say. That took a while, but it was so worth it. I love this color combination of the orange and the green and a little bit of blue as well. And we've got the main like macro details sort of finished. However, there's still a lot of ground we want to cover, and I think the first sort of smaller detail I want to add is a lot more scattered rocks. This is a super rocky area, so of course it makes sense that there's going to be smaller little boulders and pebbles and stuff like that. I spent absolute hours just scattering boulders everywhere, and this might have taken just as long as the trees did, which is kind of sad, but I think it was worth it. It's crazy how these rocks made the area feel so much more full, and I feel like a good next step would be taking some coarse dirt and making a little path to run through here. We've now got a nice little trail running through this area, and honestly, this turned out pretty cool. We've even got like this little wooden bridge to cross the river with, and it leads all the way down to this guy right here, our train station, which now has another access point besides just a boat. I'm super excited to finally get all the foliage placed into this area, and I think I'm going to use 5 different blocks. Those blocks, of course, being short grass, ferns, firefly bushes, blue orchids, and resin to look like leaves, kind of. I feel like it matches the color pretty well. I'm gonna need to build a farm for all 5 of those things, and I wouldn't mind starting out with resin. That will require a quick trip to the Pale Garden, though, somewhere I haven't been since they came out. I'm going to look for the creaking. I think they can spawn during a thunderstorm. For the farm design I'm using, I need at least 7 creaking hearts, which hopefully I can find in one night. These flowers are lit up. They should start spawning soon. There we go. Found one. Here's his tree and our first creaking heart. Number 2 should be in here. That was kind of close. I rarely put on my chest plate, but I keep getting so low, so I might as well. Why are there so many creepers? What the heck? Bro, what? No. Are you kidding me? Stop. That should be the last one we need. I'm ready to head home. With the creaking hearts collected, I flattened out a little area in here. This is where we're going to build the resin farm. It's a pretty simple design. It only takes these materials, so it should be pretty quick to build. This might be the ugliest farm ever. Also, it doesn't even work yet because I need to lower all the ground 1 block. But I'm going to use that as an opportunity to actually decorate this place. I'd like to turn this into a little bit of a cave here so it doesn't look so ugly whenever we want to use this farm. Here's my layout for the cave. I like it. However, we have that problem, which we'll have to deal with later. I'm thinking I'll just build the dome for the cave and then kind of just cover everything in water because this is going to be a nightmare to spawn proof otherwise. The cave's all finished, and I've spent a long time here hacking away at these creakings. It's not the fastest thing ever, but it does give us some, and after a few nights, we should have enough. Also, I decorated the whole place. I wanted to make it look like it's dripping with all this resin, sort of like the resin is more of an ore being mined out of the ground, I guess. Honestly, I'm just excited to have access to this block for the first time ever in any of my Minecraft worlds. With the resin farm built up, I think it's time to move on to Firefly Bush, which should be pretty easy. You can see I put a texture pack on that hides like the little fireflies on the texture. I think it looks a whole lot cleaner. And I just want to find a building somewhere that I can put this thing in. I'm thinking probably this one. I think this is empty. Yep, this is perfect. Got a floor placed down. Let's add some decorations so we know what this building is for. Even a little item frame out front, just like that. Let's get our collection system going. We're going to use mud blocks so that the items can pass through. Let's go ahead and throw some bone meal in this thing. And it should get right to work. Perfect. I'm going to fill a ton of bone meal on the top here so we have plenty to work with. That is extremely loud though. I don't want to be anywhere near it. And while that farm is running, we can head right across the street here to where our fern farm already exists. This is a pretty simple farm. We just place a bunch of ferns down like this. And then we click this button to bone meal them all. Grab some shears, shear them all up, and repeat the process. I decided for the grass, the fastest thing would just be going around my world and shearing up some local plains biomes. I got our first 4 decoration blocks out of the way. Now I just need to get these blue orchids. And as I'm sure you know, the only place to find them is in the swamp. Sadly, there's not one anywhere near my island. There's like a tiny little narrow entrance somewhere here. There it is. Another little narrow entrance. And we should end up in the swamp. Let me find a flower patch. It looks like there's one right here. I'm assuming I probably got rid of most of them. This works. This is a pretty simple design. The one you've seen many times before where we're just pushing the grass back and forth. Let's go ahead and run this thing. Hopefully it works. Looks like it, but come on. There we go. Looks like it's making a ton of the flowers too. We are pretty much there. I just want to top up my resin box, which takes a little while. This is not the fastest farm ever. Let's take all the blocks we've collected and try to transform one of these sections. We'll start by scattering the resin all underneath the trees, and then we'll start making large patches of the various foliage blocks, like the firefly bushes. We also need some of the blue flower patches. I think that's a really good level of detail, but it looks really full and it looks really unique. I've never really seen anybody do it quite like this. I'm honestly just excited to see how this place looks once the whole area is like this. Our first mountain is fully detailed, and I really love this. It just totally transforms it. It looks 1,000 times better, and it honestly just feels so unique. I'm excited to do the same thing over here as well as on the ground. The problem is we still have this huge area with the ugly blue-green grass, so I want to cover it all in moss, and maybe I'm thinking we could even put in a big lake up here. I feel like that could be a good foreground detail for the mountains. Maybe it'll be like a sort of fishing lake for the people who live around here, because someday there is going to be like another city over here and stuff like that. So let's see if I can't finally get rid of all this grass. Step 1 is digging out the lake. I think this should be a pretty good size. To make the lake look deeper, I want to put the dark mud all across the bottom, but I'm completely out of it, which is why we're in the mangrove swamp, trying to get at least a shulker box. That should be enough. I got rid of all the gross blue grass, and now we have a big old lake right here. Honestly, I'm just really curious what this is gonna look like with the water in it. So I'm never sure what the best way to do this is. I think it's just starting layer at a time and then going around the edges. I think seems like the best, but still time-consuming way to do it. I feel like this lake does so much to improving the environment of the area. I'm really glad I decided to do it. I want to connect up some of these waterways. For example, I want this to kind of lead into here. Perfect. I also think a larger waterfall flowing out of here might make sense, because it is a little weird having the lake right on the edge here. This doesn't have to be perfect, but hopefully it looks decent. Yeah, this is actually looking pretty good. Okay, yeah, I like that a lot. It stays almost perfectly even the whole time, which is nice. I was not planning on transforming this area, but I am so glad that I did. It makes just a world of difference. And I didn't show it in the time lapse, but I actually went through this entire little canyon here and also did all the detailing for this area with the foliage. But I still gotta do out front by the cave and facing the Mediterranean area. And of course, I still have to do this big old mountain right here. So before I add all the finishing touches, the more human details, like maybe a cabin up on that ledge or some other small things like that, it's gonna stay mostly nature though. Let me go ahead and finish with all of the foliage. The second mountain is now totally covered in foliage. And not only that, I also got a good chunk of this front area done. It could probably use a little bit more, but I completely ran out, and I'm fine with this for now. But like I was saying earlier, in order to finish this project, I want to add some of the more human elements to it, I guess. It's going to stay 99% nature, but I do want to have like a cabin there, maybe like a dock and a little sailboat in the lake, and some other stuff scattered around this area along the path, I guess. First, let's start with the cabin that's going to go right there. That's going to require a couple materials. This should be about everything. This thing is 7 by 8 blocks wide. I'm just throwing in a tough foundation here. We'll mix in some of the regular stuff as well. There's also going to be a chimney coming out of the front of this thing. And as a sort of trim block, I want to use barrels. The bottom of barrels, actually, it's a little bit of a different texture. I kind of like it. The problem with this area is that it's absolutely swarmed with fireflies at night because of the hundreds of firefly bushes, but it's worth it because they just look so cool during the day. Anyways, we're going to cover up the weird side of these with trapdoors, and then we're just going to build up the walls with either oak logs or stripped spruce, making the logs look like they kind of stick out like a real log cabin using trapdoors. Okay, I've got the base walls in. Let's put on the roof. The roof line is a little interesting. I think I want the roof to hang over like that much, which might be a little crazy, but I think it'll look good. Let me continue this roof design all the way along. This side, it's pretty flat. This side is a little bit more interesting though. We have the chimney, of course, which we'll put some campfires in for smoke. I'd like to put a like dormer window right here. I think I'll just make an opening like this. I remember seeing a video where somebody used the top of the oak door as their window shutter. It's like the perfect little size to fit in there. This is looking really cool so far. Before we move inside, let's quickly put a little planter box here. Let's put some flowers in there just like that. Let me throw down a floor in here. I'm gonna leave room for a rug out of glazed terracotta. Let me get a ceiling put on this thing real quick, and then a row of these to light things up. For the interior, I stuck a nice fireplace with a cake and some bookshelves, a little storage area up here because, you know, there's not a ton of room in here. Right underneath is the bed. And then we're even growing some homemade carrots. Finally, I'm going to throw a door on here. Our tiny little cabin is now done, and I really like how it turned out. Of course, I didn't want to make it too big because then it would throw off the scale of the rest of the area. But it's the perfect focal point for this view, and I'm just glad to have something built up over here. The next detail I want to add to this pond area is a little dock and maybe even a sailboat. That seems like a decent length. And then I want to put quite a few different fence posts holding it up. That looks good to me. Now let's put a little sailboat docked over here. The design I'm going to use is actually the same that I used over here in our Italian village. I'm just going to build one of these sailboats here in a new color, and I think it'll be nice to have some consistency in the designs that we use across our world. Of course, not for everything, not for most things, but for a few details like this, I think it'll be cool. There we go. We've got our sailboat put in. I really like this design, honestly. I wish there was a better solution for these ropes, honestly, instead of using chains, but for what we have in the game right now, this works pretty well. One of the final details I want to add to this area, I think, is adding life to it, adding some movement to it. I want to stock it with mobs. I've never really done that for any of my builds, but there's a bunch of new mob variants like the cold and warm cows and pigs and chickens. I think it'd be cool to fill this area with some of those unique mob variants that aren't native to this area normally, at least when it was a meadow biome. Now that it's kind of a mountain biome, I think that makes sense. I'm going to stock up on fireworks real quick because we're going to have to do a lot of flying to transport all these mobs. I really need to set up a firework factory. Maybe I'll do that next episode. Let's head towards our snowier biomes and see if we can find some of these cold mob variants. These chunks were loaded since the update, so I don't think we're going to find any here, but it's worth a look. Yeah, see, they're all the old mobs. We need to go to a new area. This is more like it. I see some of the cold chickens and the pigs. Perfect. I'm gonna grab one of these guys. Let's pillar up and get these guys ready to fly. I should probably use like the happy gas or something, but that's just so slow. This should work fine, I'm hoping. Seems like it. Took me a minute, but we've got all these guys over here now. I think I'll make 2 separate pens in order to breed them. I'm going to need quite a few of these carrots to breed all the pigs I want. I think I'm just going to sit here and breed these guys every 5 minutes and do my homework in the meantime. And hopefully, before we know it, these should be packed with pigs and cows. No, no, no. Come on. The pigs are starting to entity cram, so I'm just going to let them free, I think. There we go. And I'm just going to have to lead them out of here. There's also a creeper in there, so I'm not getting anywhere near. I just want to scatter these guys throughout the area. I'm not going to bother putting them up there. They're just going to fall down. I'm going to run around breeding up these cows one last time, and then I think I'm going to let them free. Yes, I know this is a ton of mobs. However, they are going to spread out a lot eventually, and I'll probably also throw some up on the higher cliffs, because at least the 3 I put up here have stayed mostly so far. I remember starting this project late June, early July, thinking it's too bad I'm not doing this in the fall with all the like orange trees and stuff. Well, funny story. It's October now, and I'm finally done with this project. Yes, it got way out of hand. Yes, I had no idea how long doing this by hand would take. But man, was it worth it. I created a biome here, an environment that I think is like probably my favorite build ever. And it's something I've really never seen done in this way before. The heavy use of some of the new blocks like resin and firefly bush added in the last year just totally transformed this area. And if you're forgetting, this is what it used to look like. Yeah. It's a big difference. Now when I'm in my base, I'm able to see a bunch of cool orange trees and a giant mountain instead of that ugly snow mound. Coming in on the highway, we now have a really cool view to look at from the side here. That's amazing. Because to be honest, this is a project that kind of felt impossible, but I'm so glad I did it. This is the first video I've made since hitting 100K back in July, and I knew I wanted to do something big, do something really cool and unique, and I think we pulled it off. To be clear, we're definitely not done with this project. We'll never be done with this world in general. There's always so much more to do. But every little project we do on this island makes me enjoy this world that much more. So thank you so much for 100,000 subscribers. Thank you for watching to the end, and I'll hopefully see you in a less amount of time than 3 months. And if you want to watch another episode, I'll throw one here at the end.